Good evening. It is Thursday, April 4th, 2024, and coming to you from the Lonely Tree Media Studios in Tacoma, Washington. This is the Best Lamb Sports Show. Classic opening music.
It is one of my favorites.
It's pretty good, isn't it? That's that free stuff you can get, the free what do you call it?
Royalty free.
Royalty. That's what I'm talking about. Royalty free music. So you can find. I don't even remember what the name of this is.
I don't think you need to know it.
No, I don't want anybody else knowing it either, because then they might. And this is the first time it changes, right? It kind of builds here.
So
I like it.
Yeah.
All right.
I've never actually listened to it.
We never listened to it past 30 seconds.
Huh.
But this is the time, because you know what? We're off. We're going to be totally. We don't really even have a script. This is an unscripted, whatever, freeform.
This reminds me of a hockey song, like a hockey highlight song.
But listen,
like an intro thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it got a little bridge type thing.
It feels like it could be on a NHL 25.
Yeah.
Right.
Or hopefully it's on NCAA 25 when it comes out.
Right. I'm your host, David Lamm. With me is my son, Parker. Say hello, Parker.
Hello, Parker. Jeez Louise.
Yeah.
Don't you people go home?
No, it's costing me a fortune in drinks. But
our coffee bill is outrageous.
The water bill, all those showers. Right? We haven't talked in ever. I mean, it seems like it's been forever, and I want to say it's been almost a month since we did a show, and we got a lot of crap to go over, but we'll get through what we get through, and we're gonna have fun doing it tonight. We're not necessarily going to be tied to any one thing. We can go whatever direction we want. So, that being said, we're going to talk about the Final Four. We're going to talk about Formula One a little bit. We're talking about the NFL draft. And NFL rule changes for this year. We may get into soccer and hockey and I don't know, tennis. Probably not tennis. But
probably not tennis.
Probably not tennis. We haven't covered tennis since the pandemic, by the way. Which
when it was the only thing worth covering.
I mean, and if you look at the script of the shows from back when we started, because we started right in the middle of the pandemic, and if you look at it, we've got Korean baseball. We've got Premier League soccer, right? Because those things were still happening. Most of the things, nothing was happening in the United States. They had canceled every damn thing. So, and yeah, we chose to start our venture right in the middle of pandemic, and it was fun. It was interesting. But
we used to end every show by saying, "Wash your damn hands."
Wash your damn hands. You still should. We should still end it that way. That should be.
I still do wash my hands.
The show motto. It's going to be on the back of our T-shirt. We'll get the logo on the front. On the back, it'll say "Wash your damn hands."
Wait, is it wash your damn hands or wash yo damn hands?
Well, it depends on who you're targeting. Your target audience.
That's fair. I like wash yo damn hands.
All right.
You just say it sassy.
with a southern drawl to it too. Wash your damn hand. Anyway, I think what we're gonna do is let's do the trivia question.
Okay.
It is we're in the Final Four, men's and women's, and I want to cover the trivia question, the Stave and Stone trivia question here, which we do every week. I have a couple of questions, but this is the main one.
Ooh.
We're gonna cover it. We're gonna talk a little bit more. I'll ask more during when we talk. But anyway, here's the main one. You ready?
Okay.
What is the only college to win both the men's and women's Division I national championship in the same year? There's only one school that's ever done it. Who is it? And there you go. So, yeah, right? So there's your trivia question. We can answer it later, or we can do it now because I got more as we go.
To win both men's and women's?
In the same year. Win both men's and women's in the same year.
Basketball.
Right? Yeah.
Huh. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Like, my brain tells me it has to be like UConn or something like that, because they've been, they've got 30 titles and they've got a couple titles on the men's side.
Yeah.
But I could get surprised by
someone
else. So,
yeah.
I don't know.
Okay.
I'll go with UConn. I'm gonna throw it out there.
And you're right.
Ah,
It is
yes.
UConn. UConn has done it twice.
Ooh.
2004 and 2014.
Huh.
No other school has done it.
Well,
Yep.
I know that there's a D2 school,
This year.
yeah, that
Yeah.
just won men's and women's, and they became the
Right.
first one to win in men's and
Yeah,
women's in D2.
that's why I put Division 1 in the question.
Yeah.
But the reason I bring that up is because the men's Final Four right now includes North Carolina State and UConn. The women's Final Four includes North Carolina State and UConn.
And
So
there's
you might see it
oh,
again.
do we think North Carolina State is going to beat UConn on the men's side?
Or on the women's side. I mean, I don't think it's going
I
to
could
happen
see it
either
on I
direction.
could see it on the
But did you think NC State would be here in the Final Four anyway? I mean, they were hot
no.
coming into the tournament. They won the ACC tournament. I get it, but they also have 14 losses. This is a team with a lot of losses.
Yeah, they're on a wave. That's for sure.
They are. They're playing well. Anyway, so
Well enough to win, yeah.
your Final Four right now: NC State and Purdue are playing Saturday 3:09 on TBS.
Can't wait to watch Zach Edey get 60 foul calls and
It'll be interesting because NC State's got what's his name, Burns, DJ Burns, a big monster of a man.
yeah, but they're that's not the script.
I understand, but if I'm the NC State, I might be tempted to have DJ Burns make some fouls. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I'm not telling him to hack a Shack, but I am telling you that Edie's their worst free throw shooter, and
Well, for sure, yeah.
if you're gonna do it, make them painful.
But the problem is that Edey has a great way of making shots through
Yeah,
contact.
sure.
He's got good situational awareness like that, and it's hard to get the fouls on him at a point when they're gonna hurt because they love to call like the minor hand check stuff on him. Like if you put your hand on, like there was a play where he got the ball inbounded to him, or he got the ball tossed to him inside, and the guy behind him who had been subbed in this last game because their main guy fouled out for Tennessee had both hands like full like blocker style just sitting on his back. Right?
Right.
Now, that's not against the rules to have your hands like in against your body against someone's back. You can't shove them with it. You can't push them with it. But
Right.
you can have your hands essentially making like a chicken wing type look on your with your fists on your chest holding somebody. That's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
But they inbounded it to him. He starts trying to back him down. He's got a solid base behind him, and his hands are like that. And everyone on Purdue is screaming, "Hey, you can't do that. He can't use his hands like that." And then they called it.
Right.
And it's like, what did he do?
Right.
But Zach Edey gets all of those calls.
He does. Which he shouldn't, but he does. 7. Zach Edey's listed, by the way. Purdue lists him as 7'4", 300 pounds.
So he's probably 7'1" or 7'2".
Right. And yeah.
But he might be 300.
He might be. DJ Burns is 6'9" and 275. So there's a size advantage for Zach Edey, but it's not when you're dealing with a 300-pound guy versus a 275 guy. That's not a gigantic advantage. I mean, a 25-pound advantage from a 125 guy to a 100 guy, that's a big advantage. But when you're dealing with 300 and 275s, honestly, you've seen defensive linemen and offensive linemen go at it. There's not much difference.
Yeah,
right?
But if DJ Burns is being listed at 6'9", he's probably 6'7".
Oh yeah,
he might still be 275.
He might be more than that.
He looks like he carries much more weight.
Mm-hmm. He looks a lot thicker
than his frame should allow.
Well,
I'm not saying not should allow is not the right way to say that. He looks like an offensive lineman. He's built like an offensive lineman.
He's more dense.
Yeah.
Let's just say that.
I'm looking at pictures of him here like right now, and it doesn't look like his arms are that long.
Probably
I don't know.
Not. I'm just saying
he's gonna get eat up. He's gonna get 3 fouls early,
Maybe.
and he's gonna sitting half the game and producing a cruise.
If he can find a way to keep his position, right, and make Edey shoot it not at the rim, but 6 or 7 feet from.
Well,
the rim.
Edey's not gonna be able to back him down. That's
what I'm saying.
Yeah.
If you can make him make hook shots, make him make the turnaround shot from 6, 7, 8, 9 feet instead of right at the rim, it'll be a lot harder. But he has to be able to keep him out of the middle. He's got to be able to keep him out from under the basket. And rebounding, you've got to be able to block him out. That's the key because he's got long arms. He's tall. He's going to reach over the top. He's a beast, really, to contain, right?
Right, because he's
Because
huge.
he's much bigger than everybody else. Yeah.
Yeah, like people tend to and you'll find out at the next level. You and I and everyone will find out at the next level when he gets there, and his size is no longer the biggest advantage, in the world,
Right.
and you start realizing that Dwight Howard, late in his life, is better at handling you in the post than you think you are. Right? Like, you think
40-year-old
Wemby's gonna
Dwight
have a
Howard.
problem?
Yeah.
Yeah, you think Wemby's gonna have a problem blocking Zach Edey?
Yeah.
Like, there's plenty of guys in the NBA who are 7'3", 7'2", so it's not a concern.
It's true.
Zach Edey has been the best in every single win that they get. He has more than 15 free throws. In this last game, he had 20 something
Oh
free
yeah,
throws.
that's ridiculous.
He didn't have a foul called on him.
That's ridiculous.
Until there was 6 minutes left in the game. You're trying to tell me this guy didn't foul anybody at any point?
Yeah, it's garbage. Those kind of statistics are garbage.
Yeah, those are the kind of statistics that make me have no faith in the true competition, true competitive nature. Basketball is too easy to manipulate with fouls.
It is, and you'd think with 3 officials and reviewable things, and you'd think that it would be more objective, but it's not. I mean, it isn't. Let's say this: for the most part, it is, right?
For the most part,
but you have certain things that happen, and it makes you just literally go, "That's what really is that a?" You watch a lot of fouls when you see some of the fouls are legitimate when he goes to the free throw line, absolutely. Yeah. But then the other half of them, you go, okay, you didn't call that at the other end. Why are you calling that down here, right? And that's where fans get all grumpy and coaches get grumpy, and that's what But you got to find
what's justified about it.
You got to find a way to deal with it when you're the other team. You just got to find a way. And honestly, and it sounds awful, but when you're overmatched like that, you've got 2 options. One is you don't ever go inside, right? And offensively, because he's going to block shots and he's going to be in the middle, and you just stay outside and you try and win from the perimeter, if you can, or you have to make him pay for being in the middle. And by saying that, I'm going to sound like a thug, like this is a thing, but you have to literally make it physically painful for him to come into the middle. You have to do that. If he
does play like 38 minutes a game, there's no reason by like the 20th minute he shouldn't feel every body that moves his way.
And I'm telling you, the minute he turns around to take that first shot, and he makes a turnaround shot, he posts up and turns around. If DJ Burns doesn't take the palm of his hand and put it right on his face into his nose and make him blink when he shoots, ooh, I just freaked out the camera.
Yeah, you're gonna cause it to get too much.
I don't know if it's coming back.
It should eventually.
Yeah, it's kind of, well, not really.
Well, maybe. Note to self: hands away from the camera.
Note to self: don't do that again. See, this is what happens when you put your hand in someone's face. It goes blurry like that.
In theory,
that's what you do.
But then also, what happens is you get called for a flagrant 1, unnecessary contact to the head or neck area, and you get assessed. He gets the bucket probably, and he gets the free throws, and they get the ball back, and now you're going to the bench.
If you do it
early in the game,
I'm just telling you, if you do it right. And as he's going up, you get part of the ball, any part of the ball, not when he's up already.
I understand the perfect circumstance of getting a partial block and make it look legitimate.
You can go right through and hit him in the face, and it'd be fine.
Yeah, it's still going to get you a flagrant 1. It doesn't matter.
You're going to get a foul.
Well, you're definitely getting a foul.
Okay.
But in this league, you're going to get a flagrant 1 for hitting someone in the face, unless it's like on the back of their head or something like that. They don't always call those ones. But if you pop somebody in the eyes or the nose or the mouth, you're getting a foul call. There it is.
I finally got it. I understand that, but I'm willing to take the flagrant 1 in the first 5 minutes of the game.
Yeah, but then you're asking DJ Burns to play foul-free basketball.
Well, he's not going
against a guy who gets foul calls like crazy, and then you're gonna end up tying your own hand behind your back, not having one of your best players on the court because he's gonna pick up 2 or 3 within the first 10 minutes of the game,
maybe,
and then you're gonna spot him a lead.
But you won't. I've seen this done, and you won't have to do it twice. The first one or second one, but you make one of them count where you actually make contact to the face area, and if it makes his eyes water, if you do it right, it's going to be hard for him to focus and follow through on every shot, because the minute your hand comes at him, he's going to blink. His head's going to pull back just a hair, and he's going to be off just a hair. That's what you got to do. I'm not saying anyone should hurt anybody. I'm just saying the only way to beat him inside is to make it so that he doesn't want to come inside. and
Yeah.
that's going to be hard to do. So
Yeah, and the big issue is if you do that, you have to play mistake-free basketball the entire
absolutely,
rest of the way because you're going to grab a flagrant one. You can't be overly aggressive on anything, or you can because at the end of the season, who gives a crap, right? Might as well go out with some style.
no holding anything
But
back now.
right, exactly. But it's a it's
Hmm.
a, it's a it's a doozy. Like I
It's
don't.
a fine line.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's going to be a tough one to pull off,
I,
and I don't think Edie's going to make it easy on him,
maybe
unfortunately.
maybe just start playing normal. You play them up straight up, and then if things are not going well, then maybe you adopt a different strategy. I don't know because they're gonna say, or the coach is gonna say, "Oh, I think he can handle him." I don't. Nobody's handled him at this point, really.
I just think the league needs to look into the way that I say it right, like everyone knows it. They need to look into the way that the fouls are called against him,
Yeah.
because I think I agree with you. Like towards the end of that Tennessee game, they were hacking him.
Yeah.
Those
Oh,
are legitimate fouls, is what it is.
yeah. Well, I mean,
But
if you don't call the intentional fouls to stop the clock at the end of the game flagrant fouls, you cannot call a flagrant foul on anything. You can't because that's exactly what that is, the
well,
flagrant intentional contact.
we've talked about
Yeah,
that
we
a
did.
thousand times. Completely agree with that.
Yeah.
But aside from that, not calling it equally on both ends,
That's
like
true.
Zach Edey drops his hands all the time, but because he's 7'4" allegedly, and his arms reach up to 9 feet in the air,
Or more.
when he drops his hands, they aren't hitting faces, like they're hitting the ball and things like that. But that's no
Yeah.
longer legal guarding position when your hands drop to the front,
Yeah.
right? Straight up, right? But he doesn't get those ones. Whereas a smaller guy goes straight up and then drops his hands a little bit. He's hitting Zach Edey.
Right.
But the offense isn't the contact necessarily; it's the illegal guarding position.
Right.
The body contact is the foul. The hands are the extra.
I'm not saying it's going to be easy, and I'm not picking NC State to
Purdue's
win that
gonna win.
basketball game. But they're here. They're in the Final Four. They're here for a reason. So
Purdue's going to win, and then UConn is going to slaughter Alabama.
Purdue's a 9.5-point favorite, by the way, in that first game. Second game is Alabama UConn. That is Saturday at 5:49. I love the times from TBS. Thank you very much. UConn is 35-3. Alabama's 25-11. UConn's 11.5 favorite in that game. And yeah, I'll pick both UConn and Purdue.
Yeah.
And then I'm picking UConn to beat Purdue. Barely, but I'm picking UConn to beat Purdue. UConn is better all around as a team.
I agree with that statement. UConn shoots better,
Yeah.
which is what Purdue wants you. They want to try and challenge you to play from the outside.
If you-
and if you can play from the outside, then you're fine.
If you can play a game with minimal turnovers and a high shooting percentage, you're going to beat Purdue. But that's what you have to do.
I think I read that all of Purdue's losses this year came against teams that were shooting like 65% or better from the field, like
Yeah.
and outside of the paint.
You got to be high.
Like, yeah, you got to shoot well. Like you can't. I saw this with Tennessee. They would drive down and they'd get like a great mid-range shot. They have this one little guard, like tiny guard, and he would get these great mid-range shots, and he'd back iron every single one of them. He missed like 6 shots in a row, and I'm like, these are so important, man.
Yeah.
Go glass or something, or
Right.
just
Find
pick a
an-
different spot.
Find another way. Yeah.
Yeah, because you're not doing it.
Yeah. This is a personal story. In when I was in middle school, I went through a period of a couple games where I could not make a layup.
Ooh.
I don't even understand. I was
working for
good
you.
at stealing the basketball. I was good at driving down. I was fast, and I drove down the floor, and I just could not. For some reason, I don't know. It was coming in too hot, or if the angle. I don't know. I don't know what I was doing wrong. But it was literally. It's like getting the yips in golf, right?
Yeah.
It happened, and then all of a sudden it was gone, and it was like then everything was back to normal. But it was 2 full games where I was like, what is going on? Not even in like practice, warming up. I was struggling to make a layup. So that it happens. I mean, there's times where you just get this little thing in your head, that mental block where the first shot doesn't go, and then it snowballs because you're thinking about it. And then a layup should be second nature. You didn't even think about it. It just happens, right?
Right.
The golf swing is kind of the same thing. You don't really think about it. Once you're at the ball, you've done it so many times, you shouldn't have to think about it.
If you're thinking about it, it's probably a bad thing.
And then you make bad mistakes. Anyway, there's that personal story. Let me ask you this: how many Pac-12 teams have won the NCAA tournament? As let me square that away. As members of the Pac-12. Now, that includes the Pac-10, the Pac-8,
Okay.
the Athletic Association of Western Universities, and the Pacific Coast Conference when it first started in 1915. There you
Okay. So UCLA and Oregon,
go. Okay.
and I don't think Washington ever won one. Mm, mm, I don't think Colorado ever won one. I don't think Utah ever won one. No Washington. Washington State. Did Washington State make it? Nah, probably not. Arizona's won them. Yeah, I knew that. Why did I not think of that earlier? Um, Maybe Arizona hasn't won one. I'm gonna go with they have. So I'll say four.
Okay.
Is that right?
It's 5.
It's five. Who were the other two that I was missing?
Cal and
You,
Stanford. So
when did they win there?
so you know Oregon's, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
first one.
1939. Stanford won in 1942.
Okay.
Cal won in 1959.
Okay. This makes sense why I
So,
wouldn't have counted them.
so there's since then only 2 teams in the Pac-12 have won a championship.
UCLA
And that's
UCLA was all during
and
the
that's
70s.
that's Arizona in 1997,
Oh man,
and it's UCLA 11 times.
11 times.
Most recently in 1995. No Pac-12 team has won it since 97. It's been 26 years, going 27 years. Just have and still with that long of a drought, the Pac-12 is tied with all the conferences for the lead, 15 titles, because thanks to UCLA's 11.
Thanks to UCLA.
The ACC has won 15. The Pac-12 has won 15.
Interesting.
So, yeah. So there's that for you. There's your little tidbit of fun information. The
Im-
Athletic Association of Western Universities is what happened after the Pacific Coast Conference ran into some, shall we say, shady trouble. I don't remember exactly what the deal was, but there was something that went down and it wasn't good, and so they kind of Oregon and Oregon State removed themselves from it, and then there was a reorganization of things, and anyway, I don't know what all happened, but in 1959, for the 1959 season, they became the Athletic Association of Western Universities, and the Pac-8 didn't happen until the 70s.
Right.
So
That
there you go.
tracks.
There you go.
Learn something new every day.
There you go. That's that. So if you want to watch, I think if you want to watch good NCAA basketball, watch the championship game. That'll be Monday night. If you want to watch 2 semifinal games, tune in on Saturday. I'm not saying it'll be any good. There's a chance that one of those teams will put up a fight, but I don't. I would imagine this is a double-digit win for both Purdue and UConn.
Yeah, double digit for Purdue on a big 30 free throw difference, and
Yeah.
and then UConn I think is going to win. I think the Purdue NC State game has a better chance of being closer than the other one.
And if you're out there scoring right now, Seton Hall just beat Indiana State for the NIT championship.
No one cares.
Indiana State finished the year 32-7. Pretty good record, but it's Indiana State. That is Larry Bird's alma mater, by the way. So there you go.
Oh wow, Larry's probably not very happy.
Larry Legends right there. So women's Final Four also set, right? Semifinals are tomorrow. NC State and South Carolina, undefeated South Carolina, tomorrow, Friday at 4 p.m. That's on ESPN. South Carolina is an 11.5-point favorite. They probably should be. Then the other semifinal is after that, UConn and Iowa, which everyone's going to want to watch, right? Paige Beckers and Caitlin Clark. 6 p.m. Friday, also on ESPN. Iowa is a 2.5-point favorite. That's pretty small. Those teams are pretty even. That'll be a good basketball. If you want to watch a good women's basketball game, that's probably a good one to tune into.
Right.
Yeah. So your impression of Caitlin Clark is better than Paige Beckers, or Paige Beckers just because of her injury history and she's coming back from that, and I don't know exactly. They keep giving Caitlin Clark all this love, and I go, talking about her scoring and all that, and I was like, yeah, she plays in a lot more games than Pete Maravich ever did, and Pete Maravich couldn't play as a sophomore. He couldn't play varsity basketball, and he didn't have a 3-point line, and he didn't have a shot clock.
It's all about the right situation.
I mean, if he had, somebody figured this out, because Dale Brown, who used to be the coach at LSU, he was the assistant coach back in the day, but he charted all of the shots, and so they have that record, and they can show you, basically, hey, had the 3-point line been in effect, Pete Maravich would have averaged over 50 points a game, and that would have just been ridiculous, right? But anyway. He won't be the overall all-time scorer because he doesn't get to play 40 games a season, and he's Yeah, he only played 2 seasons as a varsity basketball player. So
Yeah.
it's all not saying asterisk related, but it is kind of a Roger Maris situation. Yeah, you had a few extra games, you got an extra home run, that kind of thing. Anyway, Caitlin Clark is a fantastic basketball player.
Yeah, she's good.
She's
Is
good.
this women's tournament all like overshadowed by all the problems it's been having?
Yeah, I mean, we don't know where the 3-point line will be for these games.
Well,
Just,
we know where it's supposed to be,
we
and we know where it is on one side of the court.
we know where it is in Portland. We just don't.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, there's some things going on, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe overshadowed. It's been a pretty good. It's been a pretty good tournament. I mean, other than those issues, but I mean, you got some pretty good teams there.
Well, the
and
games are fine.
the
I'm
games,
saying like women's basketball is second fiddle to men's basketball.
yes,
Just is, unfortunately. But the most interesting thing about women's basketball is these things. Is a
yeah,
3-point line being too short? Is Kim Mulkey calling the Washington Post a hit piece? Is the one girl having to remove her nose ring after playing in a game the day before with the nose ring? Is the official who got removed from the game because he had a degree from one of the 2 schools he was officiating?
yeah.
Like all of these
There's
things are way more interesting than the actual games.
That's the problem I've always had with women's basketball. Is it's not nothing against the women. It's just how the game is played. It always looks out of control.
Well, yeah, I watched a play the other day where there was 7 missed layups in a row.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, what is happening here?
And I don't understand why it looks that way. That's my.
Well,
I guess
it's
that's
one
my.
they don't call fouls like
But
they do in men's games. I think that's part of it.
But if you watch, so here, I'm going to use another reference. If you watch high school soccer,
Right.
go to a high school soccer game, men's or women's, doesn't matter, boys or girls. Watch a high school soccer game and watch how the game is about getting the ball to the best player on the field, and they make moves and they try and score, right?
Right.
And everything else is honestly a cluster. It's running to the ball, it's trying to stop the ball, it's very disjointed and disorganized, and there's a lot of dumping the ball to that player. Women's college basketball is the same way. You have those 1 or 2 great players, and all we want to do is get them the ball. Everything else is a foul. And that's just what you see. And then if you watch Premier League soccer, by example, it's controlled. There's tempo. Oh, I can't go forward, I'm going to go backward. I'm going to take my time. They don't do that in women's basketball. There is no control over it. It's not like they're working it for the right shot. We're in a hurry. We're going now. And every time I watch women's basketball, it's let's go. And while that's kind of entertaining in itself, because if you like action, there's a lot of action, just it's not great action. I mean, that's just my take on it. I'm not nothing against the women. I would think that women's basketball has been around. They've been playing an NCAA tournament for 41 years. So since 1982, this has been a big time thing for at least that long. Why are the women, not saying they're not getting better. They are better basketball players. The good ones are than they used to be.
Mm-hmm.
But the average women's basketball player is, I don't think, any better than they were back in the day. It's just, I don't know. It's hard for me to watch it.
I completely disagree with that last statement. The average women's basketball player is dramatically better than
You think
they were
so?
back in the day. Well, one, they all shoot better. Like, I mean, I can name 3 people right now who are better shooters. In Sabrina Ionescu, Caitlin Clark, and Paige Buckers.
Sure.
Better shooters.
Yeah.
Than anybody in the 80s.
But you're
the
talking
90s.
about the stars. Like I said, the stars are definitely better.
Right, but they raise the average.
Do they though?
Yeah, that's how averages work. Somebody gets a high grade, it raises the average. For
but
the
there's also the other end. The low end players. Well,
that low end exists in the 80s and now. So you have zeros either way.
What I'm not saying is I'm saying that there are more people on a women's basketball court that are less significant. Does that make sense? Because of those stars. Sabrina Ionescu makes 3 other players on that team insignificant. She does. That's just how it works. They're not going to score.
I don't know if
they're not going to pass.
But wasn't that the same as back?
I mean, kind of, but to an extent, when you have a great player, when you had good players, at least the other players had chances to become good because they were going to get the ball more, right? If my player averages 12 points a game, my best player is 12 points a game. Someone is going to pick up the slack. There's going to be more players. There's a 10, there's a 9, there's an 8. When I have one player scoring 40, I've got players scoring 2 and 1 and 0. That's what I'm saying.
I get that I kind of get that logic. I don't it's not concrete. Like I
No.
don't think you can I don't think you can tell me the best team from 1982 is
U-
better than
USC
the
Trojans,
best
Cheryl
team
Miller.
now.
Yeah, Cheryl Miller would have
Oh,
dominated some of these girls. Mm-hmm.
hey, superstar. What about the other ones on the
She
team?
is, and that's true. That's what I'm saying, though. But I don't
So
think
what I'm saying is it's
Cheryl.
not different, but I
Cheryl.
think the overall, I think your average mid-tier player
Yep.
is better because they shoot more, they practice more, they work harder. This is their life. They have NIL deals. It's more emphasized. Being an athlete is more of an important thing now to people
Right.
than it's ever was because there was not a great big future
Right.
for 99% of women's basketball players in the 80s. There's not a great big future for 80% of them now.
Well, and
But that's
sure.
20% more, or 90% more.
And I don't have a lot of concrete evidence to back up what I'm talking about. What I'm going to say is this:
It
Cheryl
just
Miller.
seems that way, yeah.
Cheryl Miller was a 3-time NCAA Player of the Year, 84,
Sure.
84 through 86. Right.
Yeah.
She averaged 23.6 points per game,
Yeah.
which pales in comparison to Caitlin Clark. Right. Because because number one, Cheryl Miller's a center.
Right.
She doesn't shoot outside, and there was no 3-point line in 1984, I don't think, in college
Sure.
basketball. So she didn't have a chance to shoot and make more points. There
Sure.
was no shot clock. You could hold the ball. The other team could hold the ball and hold you to 12 points a game if they wanted to. You know what I mean? It was different back then. And go look at North Carolina video of when they were winning championships in the 70s, 80s. Go look at North Carolina and how they did it, and how Dean Smith would teach we got a 12-point lead and there's 4 minutes left. We're just gonna sit here and hold the ball till you foul us because there's no shot clock.
Yeah.
I don't have to do a damn thing.
Yeah.
But now
yeah,
you
it was,
do.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
and that's and see, but that's why you can't necessarily punish a player for scoring more points
Well,
because
you have to.
score. You have to score more points now.
Right.
So that's just an inadvertent side effect of the driving force
Of
of
the
the
shot
game.
clock.
So you can't really say,
Well, it's
oh,
Dean
well,
Smith's
Caitlin
fault.
Clark averages 32. Well, she has 12 more possessions she has to make a game, and she can't hold it for the final 4 minutes.
It's true.
But the highest rated center, points per game right now in all of women's college basketball, is only averaging 22.8.
Yep.
That's right on par with the center of back in the day, right? So
Yeah.
it's within that same band. But I don't think my problem is I don't think there's a single sport, any sport at all, ever, anywhere, where you could say that the average player in the 80s is the same as today, with the exception of golf. But I don't even know if that's true. Because par fours have been par fours, par fives have been par fives, but clubs have gotten better. Is the problem.
The technology's gotten better.
Right.
Yeah.
Baseball,
Balls
those
and
guys train way
clubs.
differently. Pitches
Yeah.
are getting faster. Bats are different. Basketball, everyone trains different. So every sport is more approached more like a business and an actual, and that includes in college, than it's ever been. So these people train and work harder than anybody I think ever did at any point in time. And I don't think I could ever agree. I mean, I'm not saying they're much better, but I think they are noticeably better. I think your average, sixth person off the bench in 1985 and your sixth person off the bench in 2024, I think that you put them in a shooting contest or a driving contest or a passing contest or a skills contest. I think that for the most part, you'll find that the more current people will tend to win those. Like
Maybe.
head to head in one way or another. You have to obviously account for positions, like they have to be the same positions and rough size and everything like that. So it gets a little tough, but I see, like, even 10 years ago, I see how much better women's basketball looks as a whole compared to 10 years ago.
But yeah, and I'm okay. I'm just what I'm saying is, it looks better because the good players make it look better. It make it look easier. Those really, really good players that you name, they absolutely make it look super easy. And all I have to do as a teammate is get the ball to you. And that's what I said about high school soccer. We're just going to get the ball to our best player, hope they score. That's all they do. They aren't any better. They get more
accounts for
assists.
86% of goals for Inter Miami. It's the same thing in every sport.
But they get more assists now because the teams are scoring more, right? So your numbers kind of look better. But I don't think anybody's picking up the slack in terms of scoring. It's
so
just
there's
that
a
you
question.
score
Are total
more.
assists up?
That's a good question. They have to be because the scoring is up, right?
Are they up relative to possessions?
I don't know.
So I guess the way you would do that is you'd measure it like per 100 possessions.
That's one
so
of
that way
those.
it's balanced across the two sports.
That's one of those stats that's going to be hard to dig up.
Well, yeah, because no
For
one
women's
freaking kept the
basketball.
stats for
Yeah,
women's basketball
right.
other than the
You're
superstars in
right.
the 80s.
You're absolutely right.
Now
That's
you
true.
can grab a stat on anybody, but back
For
in the
anything, yeah.
day, if you were not a superstar, you
You,
didn't matter
probably not.
but also superstar was relative. Like even
It's
the best men's
relative, sure.
basketball players in the 80s didn't necessarily get national coverage. Like you got
I mean, a
some, but
few.
you didn't get a
But
ton.
and that's the other thing is that you didn't have as much media coverage.
Right.
There was not nearly the maniacal coverage of sports to the little minute details like that. You didn't see that. You had ESPN in 1982, 83, 84, but it was fledgling. It was a beginner. You didn't have like round the clock. We're going to analyze every single statistic of every possession of everything of every game. They do it now. They didn't do it back then. So you weren't getting that kind of coverage. You're getting it now because they have the time. We hired a billion people. We got a billion stat people. We got a billion people out doing interviews. They've got the time and the money to make you know about every little thing that happens. But they
Yeah.
didn't back in the day. You weren't getting that. And the major networks were still busy covering the Masters. And CBS has
Sure.
always had but they've had the NCAA tournament and the Masters for I don't know how long. But they were out busy covering Major League Baseball. They were covering because that was a big Major League Baseball in 1985, 84 was bigger than women's NCAA basketball. I don't think it is now.
Uh,
I mean, it's from a fan
no.
base, yes, because they have more games and I get it, but I don't think it's as big a spectator sport. You go to any Major League Baseball game on a Wednesday, and it's not going to be a fraction full, right? But if your women's college team is playing Wednesday night, that arena is probably going to be full, whether it's students or not, alumni, whatever. But it's still going to get a bigger percentage of crowd. The percentage of seats filled is much higher.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of thing. And you're getting and that game, those highlights from that game are going to be on TV, right? If it's
Yeah.
any kind of importance. In Major League Baseball
And
back in the
sometimes
day,
even if it's not important.
yeah, in Major League Baseball back in the day, not every game is getting coverage on your news at night. So
No, they'll do that little score thing
yeah,
where they just rotate through the
scoreboard will come
scores
up,
and then
yeah,
they'll bring up the games that matter.
with those old classic graphics. Yeah. Anyway, so we talked a lot about this. Anyway.
Yep.
So women's Final Four, yeah, Friday, 4 o'clock and 6 o'clock are those games. Their championship game is on Sunday. And if I was a betting man, I'd say it's South Carolina and Iowa is who I'll pick.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I think.
And I think Iowa will beat an undefeated South Carolina team. I think
I'll
they're
tell you
better.
this. I could see South Carolina getting upset. They're 36-0. I hear you. They're 36-0. I hear you, but
Yeah.
I just they haven't looked great during this tournament run. It I don't know. It took them a little extra juice to get through it. I just not sold on it. They
Right?
handled Presbyterian right, then they crushed North Carolina, then they struggled with Indiana, then they got bailed out by free throws against Oregon State,
Yeah.
and just like kind of chaotic. Like I remember the Oregon State center got called for 3 different fouls, and in all three the announcers were like, what? I don't know how this is a foul, or I'm not sure. I'm
Right.
not sure what they're seeing here. Like by the third one, they were like incredulous. They were like, "What is happening?"
Right.
Like you just sent their best player to the bench, and then that just gave them the difference. But they haven't looked great,
Right.
and I think NC State's going to make them give them a hard time.
Yeah. I mean, NC State's good. I think South Carolina's going to find a way to win that game. I think it'll be close for a while, but I think they'll just find a way to pull away at
That's
the
fair.
end. That kind of a thing. I think the Iowa and UConn game is going to be a nail biter, but I think Iowa's going to Caitlin Clark will find a way to win that game.
Yeah.
And then you have Iowa and South Carolina. I'm going to pick Iowa. I think that's where South Carolina, if they struggle with NC State, if it's a tough game and they barely get through, Iowa's going to take advantage of that. Iowa's going to be all over them, and it'll be hard to beat. Iowa scores a lot of freaking points. I mean, 94, 89, 90. This is a lot of points. Iowa's scoring, 108 against Minnesota. They score a lot of points. So, anyway, that's my issue. They can pour in points from all over the place, and so that's a big deal. So, I don't know. We'll see. That's my pick. Who you picking?
So I'm taking the same thing. I
Right.
got what's it called? South Carolina beating NC State, and then Iowa beating UConn. So, and then I'm taking Iowa to win it.
Okay. Here's your follow up. How many women's Pac-12 teams have won the NCAA women's tournament?
2.
Just two.
Is that right?
And they are who?
I'm gonna go with UCLA.
No.
And then wait, who'd you say was USC?
USC.
Not UCLA. Arizona?
No. You're forgetting one that's kind of always in the
Always
final
in the
discussion.
mix?
Yeah, they're kind of always in the mix. They weren't
Oregon
this year.
State?
No, this would be
No.
Stanford.
Is there? Oh, Tara Vandenberg. Yep.
Stanford has won 3.
I'll be kind of happy when
The current round of
Gino, Tara, Kim, Dawn, when they all kind of give way. But also, I guess they kind of make it interesting. So I don't know.
It's been the same way. You had the same group of coaches in men's basketball. You know.
Oh, you finally got the turnover though.
Yeah, a little bit.
Coach K's gone. Coach Smith or Dean
Smith. Yeah.
Dean Smith is gone.
Yeah, he's been gone a little while, and you still have Calipari.
He's going to be gone soon because Kentucky's been underwhelming.
Yeah, you still have some guys out there, but it's taken a while for that to happen. The turnover doesn't happen as fast as you'd like to see it, but the same. It's not as much fun as a general fan unless one of those teams is your team. It's not as much fun as a general fan to watch these games when you have the same 3 or 4 coaches in every Final Four. It's just boring. I mean, honestly, it's the same team with the same style, and it's just different players. And okay, and I don't want to watch UConn win back to back national championships. I don't want to watch that.
Yeah, no one wants it.
If you live there in Connecticut, more power to you. That's great. I'm happy for you, but I don't want to see it. I want to see somebody different win it every year because it's awesome. It's a big deal. Anyway, there's that. That's my take. Anyway, let's talk about football for a minute.
Okay.
NFL draft is coming pretty soon. Caleb Williams slated to be the number 1 to the Bears.
Yeah.
From what I read.
Yep.
How good an NFL quarterback is Caleb Williams going to be?
Not
at all.
Not. He'll be okay. I mean, all of these guys are capable enough to be okay. They're all at least McCown level or better, right? So they're all capable of being in the NFL. He's going to get bailed out a little bit by hype and by the fact that team made some really good acquisitions at receiver. Who did they pick up? They just grabbed a really good receiver.
I've got a different thing pulled up here. You're gonna have to.
Well, that's Chicago Bears grabbed somebody as a free agent, and it was like, oh crap, that's a good. Dante Pettis. Oh, they got Dante Pettis. Nice. Keenan Allen. They grabbed. Keenan Allen.
From the Chargers, yeah.
Yeah. So they grabbed Dante Pettis, who's a speedster, get underneath stuff, and they grabbed Keenan Allen, who's a possession receiver and a red zone threat. So they're gonna get, and they have Mooney still, and they have somebody else that they grabbed last year. So he's going to get bailed out a little bit by having these things, but the talent will always out, and that division is Detroit's right now. So
yeah,
it's not
for
going
sure.
to matter. And I mean, I don't even know if it's Detroit's necessarily because the Packers look damn good for back half of the season last year.
Yeah, they did. There's a whole bunch to be said about a first round quarterback, especially a number 1 quarterback. So I'm reading this article from let me see who actually wrote this. That way I can better preface this. But it's talking about first round draft picks and quarterbacks specifically. And this was from ESPN, and it is by Bill Barnwell, staff writer for ESPN. But he's talking about how quarterbacks do as first round draft picks. And he picked a few classes as in general, right? And he talked about the financial part of it, but he rates the quarterbacks that have ever been drafted in terms of 5. There's 5 different levels: Hall of Famer, franchise quarterback, solid starter, low end pro careers, and disappointments. So there's just 5 levels of quarterback, right? Uh-huh. And so what he's talking about is different draft years. So like 2021 is the first year he talks about. There were 5 first round quarterbacks taken in 2021. Of those 5, he has what he predicts is no future Hall of Famers, 1 franchise quarterback, no solid starters, no low end pro careers, and 4 disappointments. So if you can think of who the 4 guys that were drafted in 2021, Trevor Lawrence is your franchise quarterback. Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, Justin Fields, and Mac Jones are your other 4.
Yeah.
So, and I would say he's probably right. Those 4 would probably be a disappointment for a first round. None of those guys were drafted lower than 15th in the draft, and I would say those are all probably disappointing. So that's what he's talking about, is this kind of thing. And you have other, like 2020, you had 4 first-round quarterbacks: Joe Burrow, Tua, Justin Herbert, Jordan Love, right?
Right.
He lists all 4 of them as franchise quarterbacks. So you kind of hit or miss in terms of that, but 3 of those guys were taken in the top 6. Jordan Love has become that kind of exception, lower first-round guy. But this is kind of how he rates it, and it's interesting to see that, because this is a quarterback-heavy draft, and people are gonna take quarterbacks because they need quarterbacks, not necessarily because that's the best player, right? And the example is going to be Bo Nix. Bo Nix on a draft board is probably 30-something, 40, in terms of best players in the draft, but he's going to be a first-round draft pick because those quarterbacks are going to go quick, right? Because they're literally talking about 1, 2, 3, and maybe number 5 being all quarterbacks. And I'm not saying that's great. I'm not saying all those guys are going to be great quarterbacks. Caleb Williams, he's got skill if his head doesn't get in the way, right? And the fact that he's going to play for the Bears doesn't get in the way, then he's got a chance.
Yeah.
But Drake May, who they seem to think is a great quarterback, Jaden Daniels, okay, I don't know. I got to see. Drake May has more NFL style quarterback than Jaden Daniels, who's a mover, who's a runner, who can, you know what I mean? Those guys are okay at times. If you run to throw, Patrick Mahomes, extend plays and set up passes downfield, and you've got the players downfield that can do it, you'll be successful. If you run to run, you won't be a successful NFL quarterback. It's just not a thing anymore.
Not normally.
It's not how it works. So it's kind of interesting to watch the guys that are going to get drafted. I'm not sold that any of them are Hall of Famer potentials. There may be a couple of solid NFL quarterbacks.
But I wouldn't have said Patrick Mahomes is Hall of Famer potential either. So
not when they drafted him.
Yeah,
but he
I would have been wrong about that too. Yeah. Well, now, yeah, duh. But we're talking about at draft point. Yeah, right. There's a lot of guys I've been wrong about.
Right. Well, what he's saying is he's not talking. This guy's not talking about when they were drafted. They were Hall of Fame potential. They are now. You got a Hall of Famer in the first round. And so that's what he's saying. So now, when you look back at it, but he also went on to say, here's another example of things. He went on to say, what happens to people who draft quarterbacks in the first round? What do you expect? If you take a quarterback number 1 overall, what should you expect? Right?
Right.
The best ever quarterback taking at number 1, Peyton Manning. This is what he lists. In the 80th percentile, so in the top 20%, Joe Burrow.
Right.
The average NFL number 1 quarterback, Jared Goff. All right? And then it goes on down. David Carr is at the bottom of the list. Jamarcus Russell is the worst. First number 1 pick is who he's got listed. So the question is, if the Bears take Caleb Williams, will they be happy with Caleb Williams having a Jared Goff type career at year 8?
Right, no,
they will not. No.
But that's also hard to say because Jared Goff just had an amazing year.
He just got better.
2 years.
Yeah, he's been
because
a lot
he went to a team that I don't know. I definitely think wants him there more than the Rams. I think wanted him there towards the end of that time. But even then, Jared Goff has played for a Super Bowl in his career.
Twice. Twice? No, just once.
Just once. Jared Goff and Joe Burrow have played for the same number of divisional titles or conference titles and the same number of Super Bowls. And would you ever put Jared Goff and Joe Burrow in the same breath? Really? Probably not. But there they are.
So then he goes on to say, okay, when a team takes a quarterback in the top 3, right? If you take all the top 3 quarterbacks ever drafted, the best still Peyton Manning, right?
Right.
In the 80th percentile, it's Eli Manning.
That's good. 2 Super Bowls.
The average top 3 quarterback, Jim Everett. If you remember Jim Everett from back in the day. In the 20th percentile, down near the bottom, Joey Harrington.
Oh.
And then worst, Ryan Leaf.
Yeah.
Because he went 2, right? So there's that. And then, if you take a quarterback in the top 10, who's the best ever quarterback taken in the top 10? He's saying Patrick Mahomes, right? Probably, maybe. 80th percentile Drew Bledsoe, the average Kerry Collins, the worst
The problem is if you specifically say top 10, yeah,
yeah.
it's Patrick Mahomes that
Yeah.
depth. If you say who is the best pickup ever, like in terms of like best bargain value for a
Oh yeah,
quarterback, it's Tom Brady,
it's Tom
right?
Brady. Yeah.
Duh.
Well,
Yeah.
it was Tom Brady. It might end up being Brock Purdy.
If he wins a Super Bowl,
If he continues to play and get them to that point,
sure.
you know what I mean? He's the
Yeah.
last pick. Tom Brady goes, "Oh, I was drafted in the 6th round." Well, yeah, I was drafted at the end of the thing.
Yeah.
You know,
This is the very end.
yeah, the very end. But
So
yeah.
so which quarterback are you taking? You have to take one. Who are you taking?
Which pick do I have? Number 1?
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
It
You
kind
have
of does.
You have to take a quarterback, and you have your
And they're all
pick,
available.
and you have your pick of the litter.
Oh, I guess that would depend on how I want to run my offense too, right? So
Sure.
so there's that. So,
Who do you think gives you the best chance of success, kind of across all thought processes?
In the NFL style of offense that I'm going to try and run,
Right.
and I'm not the possession, short pass that we're hoping breaks into yards after catch, the occasional deep ball, right?
Yeah.
Ability to stretch the field and move too. I want someone, number 1, who hasn't been injured significantly, right?
Right.
I'm not willing to take a chance on Michael Penix. I'm just saying that as an example.
Yeah, but apparently he got cleared by all the doctors. They all said that his body's
Great.
in great shape, but who
Great.
knows? Yeah,
Great.
I knew exactly you were going to say great, because you could care less what a doctor says when they say, hey, he's in great structural shape.
Yeah.
Because no matter how great a structural shape you're in, all it takes is a lineman rolling up on your leg, and
Yeah,
then you're
and
not. However, no matter how many injuries you haven't had, all it takes is a lineman rolling up on you, and then
it's true.
Yeah.
But if my leg has never been hurt before, and it's the first time a lineman rolls up on it, I'm more likely to bounce back from that than a guy who's had 2 surgeries on his knee already.
Ooh, all right, I'll counter that big, because a guy who's been injured and managed to climb back up into being great again.
Yep.
He went from having 2 blown out knees, now he's back in the top 10 draft situation. He just took his team to what's it called, to play for. Did they play for the title? No, he played in the semifinals. So that's a guy who knows how to bounce back from an injury.
Sure.
Whereas some guys, young guys,
He might not.
He might not know how to bounce back from injury.
And I'm with you on the recovery aspect, and he knows how to handle it if something happens. What I'm also saying is, if you went out to go buy a car and you had these 2 same exact cars, and the one car has brand new, never been driven, it's perfect, it's from the factory, you've got a certification saying that none of these parts are going to malfunction unless you get into an accident. And the second one says, yeah, we've had to replace a couple things, but it goes just as fast as the first one, and it does everything the first one does. Which one would you pick?
Well, yeah, duh. We take the one.
That's what I'm saying. You're not going to pick the one on the chance that something goes wrong.
Yeah, but that's of the assumption that all these QBs are
the
built equal, and that the only difference is that some have injuries and some don't.
I'm kind of,
that's a tough one.
I'm kind of dumbing it down a little, but I'm just trying to say that I wouldn't want to take the chance that your knee decides to go out without contact, right? Just making a turn or making a pivot or spinning away from, and then all of a sudden your knee goes snap, because it did it before.
Right.
Why wouldn't it do it again? I mean, you've been cleared. This is great. He's structurally in great shape, but Donald Trump's doctor says he's in great shape too. So I'm just saying, it's a matter of getting that opinion. I don't know.
I get it. Yeah.
It's
so who are you taking? Apparently not Penix.
Well, it wouldn't be Michael Penix, but I mean, somebody that hasn't been hurt, somebody that can do a little bit of everything. I do like Bo Nix the way he plays. He's a quick processor of information. He makes adjustments quickly. I don't mind Drake May as a quarterback in the NFL. I think he's size-wise, and he's smart enough. His arm strength is good enough to be an NFL quarterback. I probably wouldn't take Jaden Daniels. If Caleb Williams could guarantee me that he isn't playing for money, that he wants to win a title, I might do that. Does that make sense? I would need to have that big, long interview with him, because I want to make sure.
You think Caleb Williams' issues are personality, not necessarily talent.
Correct. I don't think he's. It's a whole. There's been other quarterbacks as examples, right? I mean, so
I agree with that statement.
Yeah,
I think Caleb Williams has personality problems.
I think that's the issue. Is he's not going to be satisfied in Chicago after about 8 games of getting beat up because his line isn't good or he doesn't have receivers that can catch the ball. They drop the ball. He's going to get angry and he's going to want out. And
Well, I forgot they picked up DeAndre Swift too.
They did.
They've got DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, Dante Pettis, DeAndre Swift. They've got and they grabbed Gerald Everett at tight end.
If he's got the time to throw it,
pieces.
If he's got the time to throw it,
well, you take him one, then you maybe you could try and trade up and just draft a lineman or two.
Yeah, maybe.
They have every piece. Well, I don't even know if their line was that bad last year. Justin Fields, I think, holds the ball too long. But I don't know. It just I think he could be fine, but I think he's going to be a bust though, because I think you're right. I think his personality is a bigger problem.
Yeah, the Bears. Yeah, and it might have just been, it might have been just Justin Fields was part of that issue too. But the Bears were averaging somewhere around 5 sacks given up a game. I mean, four. It might have been 4. It might have been closer to 4. But they had a game with 7, 2 with 6, right? That's a lot of sacks. And then the average, when you look at the mean, it's about 3. And so there's times with 4. There's 4 games with 4. There's 2 games with 5. There's 2 games with 6. 1 game with 7. That's a lot of sacks given up. If you give up 3 or more sacks in a game, you're going to lose probably. 3, 4. 4 becomes a big deal, right? I don't know what the statistic is. I'm just going to throw this out there, but I would guess that the over/under is 3.5. Under 3.5, maybe you stand a chance to win. The winning percentage is a lot higher than if you have given up 4 sacks in a game.
Right.
That's kind of, I don't know that for sure, but I feel that's probably true. Just because if you give up 7 sacks in a game, I'm sure you lost. I'm almost positive. So anyway, I don't know that that's true, but this is just my gut feeling. But I feel like that's the thing. If the line can protect him, if he can stay upright, if he's got enough quickness, if he processes the things and gets the ball out, and the receivers are all healthy, right? Because I'm not going to put any stock in anything until at the end of training camp, until we start game 1, because somebody's going to get hurt in training camp. One of those guys is going down in training camp.
Yep. Always happens.
Oh, it happens every year. And I don't know who it is. That's the problem, is you just don't know who it's going to be until it happens. And then at that point you go, okay, we got to adjust. If you've got depth, like they seem to have built up at wide receiver, they should be able to overcome that. Yeah. So, it shouldn't be an issue, but I don't, you just never know. This is my problem with NFL at this point in the season. I want to tell you who's going to be good. I can't tell you that. I can only tell you, last year I couldn't even tell you after 5 games who the best team was, really.
Sure.
I mean, it took us like 8 or 9 games into the season before we realized who probably the 5 best teams were, maybe 6, right? It was a lot more parity, it felt like, this year. And I don't know, than it has in the past. And usually after about 3 games, I can tell you, okay, these guys are out. There's no way.
Yeah.
But this year, it was different. So we'll see what happens next year. I would take Drake May. That's who I would take. And as a backup, I would take Bo Nix. If he was gone and I was picking further down, that's who I would take. I like those guys. I like the way they play. Jaden Daniels, if I knew that my offensive line was sketchy, and I needed a guy who could extend and or run when he needed to, I might be persuaded to go that way.
Right.
He has a big arm. He's got plenty of arm strength. I'm not necessarily sold on the accuracy of deep ball, but I am, because it's hard in college when you watch guys throw the ball deep, because is the receiver that much better than the defender and he just takes the ball away?
Right.
Or was it a great pass by you, perfect on the money, or did the receiver make a great adjustment to your pass?
Sure.
I love it when they always, it was a great back shoulder throw. Was it, or was it a terrible throw and that guy turned around and caught it? I can't tell the difference, really, right?
Well, I pulled up the NFL team QB sacked percentage.
Yeah.
So the worst in the league was the Giants. 14% of plays, he's getting sacked.
That's a lot.
That's a lot, right?
That's
Tennessee was the second worst at 11. Carolina's the first one under 10, 9.98. Jets, Washington. Denver was at 9.2. Chicago was at 8.88%. So on 8.88% of possessions, he got sacked.
Ranks them where? Middle?
That puts them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th to last.
It's 25th or 26th.
25th.
Yeah.
But they were less than a percentage because Baltimore was at 7.99.
I think
So that's where you start getting into the type of quarterback
right.
causes the sack. So that's why I
Sometimes.
think Baltimore and Chicago, Justin Fields and whatever his name is, Lamar,
Lamar.
are two of the biggest rushing quarterbacks that are in the league.
Yep.
Naturally, their team has high sack percentages.
It's true.
So because
So
below that you have New England, they don't have a rushing quarterback. Arizona was on backups all year, and they all have less sack percentages. Like, I mean, the biggest surprise in the top grouping is New Orleans had the sixth best.
Here's the thing. There's a lot of things you could read into this, I think, but one of those things that I think of when I see that, when I hear those numbers, is that your confidence level of your quarterback can sometimes dictate how many sacks you get. Right?
Sure.
Oh, I can hold on to this just a hair longer. I can outrun this guy. I can make this little cut and then I can throw it. If he's overconfident, you get more sacks, and that might be Lamar Jackson's issue, right? Oh, I can hold on to this just a hair longer. I'm gonna make a move and get around this guy, but he doesn't quite do it, right? And a lot of that depends also on your division. Who are the other teams?
Right.
Because you're playing 8 games against those division teams. Half your games are against the teams in your division. If your division has guys in it that can rush the quarterback, that's a whole different thing. And that's Pittsburgh. You're talking about TJ Watt and others, right? In that division. So that's a tough one. So the competition is not equal, right?
Well, the top 4 teams are Buffalo, like in terms of least amount allowed, Buffalo, Kansas City, Green Bay, Detroit, and then we'll go 5, Miami. So it makes sense. But then with Miami, you could read into it and say, well, he gets the ball out fast. That's a lot of possessions that start pushing down the number.
Pat Mahomes is great at getting rid of the football. At the last minute.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Yeah, and
Josh Allen is the same thing.
Josh Allen forces it at the last minute, but yes.
Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah.
But here's what I'll give you. Chicago had the biggest jump. In 2022, they were at 13.33%. They were the league worst.
They're on the way up.
And they cut that down to 8.88.
That's pretty good.
Like, that is a big jump forward. They're still in the bottom quarter, but big jump forward.
And I hope they can keep him upright. But I'm not sold that his ego will let him stay there unless they're successful right away.
He doesn't have it between the ears.
Yeah, if they're successful right away, if the whole team is and he's part of it, then yes, I think that he can turn out to be a great NFL quarterback. If he starts to struggle right away, I think the ego is going to become, why am I here? Right?
Yeah.
Why am I playing for? Why can't I be on a team that's playing for a championship?
Who's Chicago's coach? Did they fire Eberflus?
Oh, I don't know. They change so often. I have no idea who it is now. The Bears.
No, it's still Matt Eberflus.
Yeah. The Bears are, and they probably wouldn't have got rid of him. I don't. What was their record last year?
The Bears?
Yeah.
I don't think they had a bad year.
They won a few games, right?
Well, I mean, they definitely won at least a few. They definitely did better than the Broncos. How about that? Ugh.
Yeah. So the Bears.
Looks like they were 3-14 last year.
Is that right?
3-14 in 2022, 6-11 in 21, 8-8 in 2020.
Well, last year was 23.
Oh, sorry. I thought you meant like before last.
No,
7-10 last year.
7-10. Right.
This most recent season, 7-10.
And they went 5-3, or I guess 6-3. Nope, they went 5-3 in the last 8 games.
They had a big start to the season, or to the end of the season.
Yeah. So they went 5-3 in their last whatever games. So they were better at the end of the season. That includes a win over Detroit, at Detroit, right? So their wins were nothing to write home about. Atlanta, Arizona, Minnesota, who was struggling, Carolina, Las Vegas, and Washington were the other wins outside of Detroit. But they did win against Detroit at Detroit in December. Yeah, a team that was playing well.
And that was only Eberflus's second year,
right?
And they added +4 wins. Fields was a draft person from Matt Nagy,
right? So
he was a leftover from that group. So it wasn't necessarily Eberflus's first choice. So I'd say this year you'll get to see a lot about him.
Yeah, through October of last year, including the start of the season, the first 4 games of the year, they lost all 4. The Bears had lost, I don't know, at least a dozen games in a row, maybe more. So they definitely turned it around. They're better. And I think the Caleb Williams thing can be better for them than Justin Fields. But will it is the question. I mean, Aaron Rodgers was going to be better for the Jets. They were going to be great last year.
Until things happen.
And now they're saying, oh, the Jets could be great this year. They've already started hyping it up again, right?
Well, see, I think you can't discredit somebody's potential
No.
based on free based on the potential of freak
Right.
injury.
Well, and
So
that's
that's a tough one.
and that's what some of these guys get paid for, right? Is to make that prognostication that says, oh,
Right.
well, yeah, because Aaron Rodgers on a healthy Aaron Rodgers, and this team is 12-4. Absolutely. But he
But he
wasn't.
wasn't.
He
Yeah.
wasn't. Yeah. With Aaron Rodgers in the game, they were 0-0. And all right. So it's just I don't know how long he's going to be in the game. I'm not saying he's injury prone, but that was a bad injury.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
at this age, it's like it's funny because quarterback gets an injury on his foot or his knee or his ankle, right? At age 35, 36, it's like a 60-year-old falling and breaking their hip.
It can be.
It's like, okay, well, he's done. It's over.
I don't know that that's as much the case
Not
now
anymore.
as it may have been at one point. Well, first of all, quarterbacks don't get hurt
Not as
that
much.
often, so there's that. But then, yeah, beyond that, I feel like a lot of the QBs out there who have had, like Aaron Rodgers tore his ACL at 33,
Yeah,
and
he did.
He came back and had an MVP season.
He
So
can still.
yeah, so I don't know
mean,
that
it's out there.
know that it matters entirely.
Nope.
Not in the ways that it used to. But all right, so let's say of the outside of Caleb Williams, okay, outside of Williams, May, Daniels, McCarthy, Penix, and Nix.
I didn't even
Who's
talk
the
about JJ McCarthy.
I know, right? But he's in there. He's technically considered a first rounder. Who's the quarterback that you might take a chance on? So you got Pratt from Tulane, Rattler from South Carolina, Jordan Travis from Florida State. Like those are the next three big ones up on that deck. I do not like Spencer Rattler. I think he's also got the ears, like between the ears thing. Jordan Travis did just tear his ACL.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, Pratt is a
Pratt's
guy.
6'3", 220.
He's built.
Yeah,
he's built for it.
He's a big looking guy. Yeah.
I mean,
so he
I've
might
watched
be the
him
guy.
play a couple times and he looked great, but I mean, I didn't watch him. I don't have enough game film footage. I haven't watched enough of him.
Other guys that are out there are Joe Milton, Sam Hartman, the other.
Sam Hartman's going to play somewhere. He's going to go, and they're going
Yeah.
to draft him. And he's a big, strong guy, and he might be a good quarterback. But he wasn't great at college. But I don't think Notre Dame is ever great.
Right.
But so
I think Joe Milton's a little.
Joe Milton's interesting.
He's going to get a chance.
Yeah.
Somewhere, I think, and I think it's going to be. I don't know. I'm just not quite. I'm not sold on Joe Milton. I wasn't sold on him in Tennessee. I'm still not sold.
Yeah. Hey, let's.
Yeah.
Other questions? You got more?
No.
Okay. Let's I'm going to skip over the rules changes. We'll talk about those next week. But we'll talk about NFL rule changes next week. Real quickly, if you haven't looked at the NBA standings, we're almost at the playoffs. Most teams are 76, 77 games in, so we got about a week and then 2 weeks, probably 2 weeks left of NBA basketball.
Sure.
And the Celtics have the best record in the NBA, 60-16, by the way. They have a 13-game lead over the Milwaukee Bucks in the Eastern Conference.
Didn't they have the best record in the NBA at the end of the regular season last year?
I'm not saying it's great, but I'm just and if they take a note from the Boston Bruins a couple years ago, it doesn't really matter what you did in the regular season.
Oh no, the Bucks had the best record last year, but the Celtics were off by 1 game.
Yeah. So the
Damn.
yeah. So I'm looking at this and I'm looking at the standings in the West. You've got 3 teams battling for the number 1 spot, and that's Minnesota, Denver, Oklahoma City. And I think you could probably tell me any of those guys are going to win it, and I'd be all right. I mean, they played this many games, and there's nothing really separating them, right? And then you have that second tier of teams: the Clippers, the Mavs, the Suns, the Pelicans. Well, the rest of the West, honestly, is kind of that way in the playoff positions, 10 and up. It's good. Don't get me wrong. And the West has clearly had better year than the East in overall. And the East has the Celtics, and yeah, you could throw the Bucks in there and say, hey, they got a chance to win. They have a chance to win every game. But outside of those two, do you think that Cleveland, Orlando, New York has a chance to win the East and be in the playoffs or be in the finals?
A chance?
I mean, okay, a good chance.
Not really.
Like where you say it's like 50-50. They could get
in. Not really.
It's Bucks Celtics, right?
It is Bucks Celtics, and I honestly have no confidence in the Celtics.
I don't either, but they're clearly better than everyone else this year.
They clearly have more wins, is the way to say that.
In the East, yeah, I get it. I hear what you're saying.
I'm torn on them because they've been so disappointing at
And
random times, and
agreed.
it's tough to decide if they're really going to pick it up. And every year they get into the playoffs with a ton of hype, and then just
Agreed.
so they lost to Miami 2 games or Atlanta 2 games in a row here recently.
Yeah.
Atlanta of all teams.
I mean,
That was what broke up their like 10-game win streak, was losing to Atlanta back to back.
yeah.
So I don't know. I'm looking at their wins here and I'm seeing, okay, you beat a Phoenix team.
Yeah.
That's a good win. They beat them twice in this little stretch. You beat Portland, you beat Utah, you beat Washington, you beat Detroit, you beat Detroit again, you beat Chicago, Congrats, you're kicking the crap out of not great teams. Welcome to the East.
So what you're saying is your strength of schedule is bad. You shouldn't be in the college football playoff.
That is not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is you play the schedule that's presented in front of you, but that does not give me confidence that you are a better team than I think the Bucks are better than the Celtics. Right? I think the top 3 teams in the freaking West could beat anybody in the East.
Okay.
No problem. But that's because you have a lot of wins. That's great. Remember Boston last year in the NHL playoffs, the end of the season, with like the most points in NHL history in a regular season, just to get bounced in the first round. It doesn't mean wow, it's actually Boston again. 2 Boston teams.
Yeah, I was just saying that if they take a note from the Bruins.
Theme with Boston. So yeah, I don't have confidence in the Celtics to make a deep run. I have the confidence in the Bucks to do it. The Cavs provide you a little something. Like, they have a dynamic team, and I love Evan Mobley. I think he's one of the best centers in the league.
Yeah.
But I don't trust the Magic. The Knicks, I think, are overachieving. The Pacers are overachieving. The teams that are underachieving are Miami and the 76ers. And last year, Miami went all the way to the Eastern Conference Finals, and the 76ers just got off of having 18 games without Joel Embiid.
Well,
so they're kind of in weird spots.
Playoff Jimmy Butler is worth
something else.
A lot more than regular season Jimmy Butler for whatever reason. He just has that thing. The Bucks are 6-8 in their last 14 games. Just FYI, I'm just throwing it out there. They've struggled recently. They do have a win over, let's see, Philadelphia, Phoenix, Oklahoma City. A 25-point win over Oklahoma City.
Right.
But they've also lost to Washington. And they lost to
they got that ESPN loss in double overtime to LA.
Yeah, they got the double. Yep. And so there's some losses in there where you go, man, that's not great. Part of the problem that I always see with Milwaukee is that Giannis has to do too much. I know Damian Lillard is there. I get it. But Giannis is the leading scorer. He's the leading rebounder. Sometimes he's the leading assist guy. He's doing everything. And by the end of the season, when they get to playoff time, I think it takes its toll. I've seen him in the playoffs look physically gassed.
Sure.
And I'm like, okay, you shouldn't be that way. And, I'm almost the one who tells you I don't like taking games off just to be taking a game off. But
this guy probably should take a game off.
This guy should probably take the first 10 games of the year off and not play. And then play.
If I was him, I'd do it the back way.
I wouldn't. I don't want to get rusty and cold and not play competition until playoffs. I want to be hot going in, or maybe take the middle 10.
What I prefer that. Okay, so that's what I was just about to say.
Yeah.
I want you to rest towards the end. That doesn't mean I want you resting on the last game. I don't want your first game back from rest being in playoffs.
No,
I want you to come back for 3 or 4 as we roll into the playoffs. Yeah, I think that's the good move if you're going to rest someone.
Maybe games 50 through 60. Take those 10 off.
But also, boo, we shouldn't be resting players.
Right? And I agree with that, because some fan in Minnesota isn't going to get to see in that one time a year Giannis come to town. He's not
find me a guy who can catch his breath for a full 60 minutes. There are track stars out there who could run circles around these guys. Although that brings up one of my favorite tweets of all time. DK Metcalf tweeted out last year or the year before, he's like, I don't understand how I can run a sub whatever 40 and I can run a 200 meters in this time, but I still get winded going upstairs.
Everybody does. It's not you. I mean, it makes more stairs for some people than others, but everyone gets tired going upstairs. He's not wrong.
It was the funniest tweet I think I've ever seen an NFL player put out there.
That's hilarious.
But down the stretch here, I think I think it's still just like a few team race, right? Like, I think the West is clearly better.
Yeah.
I think the Timberwolves, I think, are overachieving a little bit.
Yeah, maybe.
Oklahoma City's not, because they're stacked with first round picks. And
Oklahoma City's deal is they can score. That's 120 points per game team, but they also are a little worse on defense than the other two, Minnesota and Denver. So they give up a little more too. But it's a it's a double-edged sword when you start scoring. When you give up sacrifice defense for offense, okay, we're going to outscore some teams. We're also going to have those games where we give up a hell of a lot of points.
Here's a question for
yeah.
you. Are you happy with the Wemby experiment this year?
Uh,
Meaning, like, I don't understand how ESPN, how fans can look at this and go, oh, they had 18 and 58, and just gloss over that and be like, but there's so much future.
Yeah,
like, it's so annoying.
There's so much potential. He's so good. Is he?
Yeah.
I mean, is he? I mean,
I think he's pretty darn good, but
I think he's good.
I think he's also big.
Yeah, exactly. I have long said that if I was 7'4", it would be a lot easier. You might see me in the NBA. It's not. It's if you're born with the height and you have any athletic ability to go with it, you have a very good chance of playing a professional sport. Right? I mean, you just do. So if you're born the right way, if you're lucky to win the genetic lottery, you're gonna be good. If you're built at 6'3" and 230 pounds, and you've got some mobility and your arm is strong, you're gonna play quarterback somewhere. You know what I mean? You're
Probably,
that guy.
Yeah.
It just you happen to be that right size. That everything has to conspire to make you correct. And some of it's hard work and dedication. You're absolutely right. And that's how average guys become great guys. But you got to be born with something already, because 5'4" guy is not playing quarterback. Doesn't matter how good he is. Doesn't matter how strong his arm is. He's not going to be playing NFL quarterback.
There's only been one Muggsy Bogues for a reason.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
everyone else is over 6 feet.
Spud Webb.
Okay,
no,
there's
the
been
two
Muggsy Bogues.
There's been two Muggsy Bogues. Anyway, NHL standings also too, because we're about 6 games away from the playoffs. The NHL and the NBA coincide literally. And if you're looking at the East right now, it's the New York Rangers. They have the best record, 106 points. They got 51 wins. Boston Bruins are right there too, but we saw Boston do this before.
I'll say what's new.
Right? Dallas Stars are leading the West, 105 points. They got 48 wins. Vancouver's right behind them. Colorado third. Those 3 teams have already clinched the playoffs. Seattle's already eliminated from the playoffs, by the way. If you're a Kraken fan, there
maybe the ticket prices will frickin' go down next year.
No, not at all. They're
not at all.
They're 31, 31, and 13 after 75 games, which means they're exactly 500.
It's pretty impressive.
It is. It's hard to do. So anyway, hockey playoffs and basketball playoffs, we'll cover those in depth. But the regular season, I don't care.
I'm so excited for hockey playoffs.
Hockey playoffs are cool.
Out here, all of the Avs games are broadcast on Altitude Sports, and the only way to have Altitude Sports is to have DirecTV or Fubo. That's it. It's not available on any other network.
Yeah.
So and even though every NHL game is broadcast on ESPN Plus, well, not everyone, but most of them are broadcast on ESPN Plus. We don't get them out here. If the game's on TNT, it's blacked out for Altitude. So I haven't been able to watch a single Avs game this year on TV without having to find a source of stream to watch it.
Gotcha.
So it's been frustrating. But the playoffs are all national broadcasts. So I'm excited to actually be able to watch playoff hockey.
Just an FYI, the Mets got their first win last night. First win in the Major League Baseball. They're 1-5 at this point.
They are now tied with the Rockies for wins.
Oh, and it's awful. I mean, I don't know.
Can't believe that the Rockies and the Mets are this bad.
It's painful. I mean, it's when you're a fan, it's painful to see. I mean, the Mets. Here's the good thing. The Mets are only 2.5 games out of first place because Atlanta's 3-2. If they were in the Central, the NL Central, they'd already be 5 games back of Pittsburgh, right? So the NL Central, everyone in the NL Central is at 500 or better. It's one of those divisions. There's always that one division, right?
Well, the NL West, the Rockies are 5 games back of the Dodgers already.
Yeah, because the Dodgers are 7-2, right? So it's just ridiculous.
Which, by the way, I hate that they have the Dodgers, Diamondbacks, Padres, Giants, and then the Rockies are tacked in there.
Where would you put them?
Well, I'd put Oakland in with that West there.
Yeah, but that's the American League.
I understand. Yeah, get rid of that arbitrary difference. Keep all the California teams together and that one Arizona team together. And then I guess the Rockies would end up falling in with like St. Louis, Kansas City.
If you're gonna do it like that, if you're going to take Oakland and move them to the National League, and I'm not opposed to this idea, if you're going to do that, Colorado's got to go to the American League. They got to go into that American League West with Texas, Houston, Seattle,
Well, no, there would be more movements than that because the Angels and the Athletics would come down here and replace the Rockies and the Diamondbacks.
Right? Exactly.
You'd have the California division.
Yeah, perfect.
Yep.
I like
and then you'd have to move some other things around to get it there. But the American League and National League would go away. There would just be Southeast, Southwest, Northeast, Northwest.
I honestly wish they would move back to the old way with two divisions, in a West and an East, right? And you can still keep your playoff teams if you want to. The top 3 teams in each division get in or something. I don't care. Do it however you want to do it. But I wish they would just go back to the East and the West. Yeah, and it was back in the day. It was so easy. Your West champion, your East champion, National League Championship Series. There you go. There you go. And then the winner goes to the World Series. I mean, you win your division, you're going to the playoffs. That was that easy. Now, I only need to be the 7th best team in my conference, in my league, right? I might be the 14th best team. I might even be the 20th best team in baseball. Oof. But I'm 7th best in my league. I can make the playoffs and make a run now. And I don't like that. I just the wild card expansion that just keeps expanding these things out to where and it benefits teams. There's teams winning titles from being a wild card, and I get it, but you shouldn't be given that option. You had 162 games to make the case that you're good enough to be in the playoffs, and you didn't really.
Yeah, that should drop to like 100 games. Like 100 games is more than enough to determine. Like I don't think you learn much after 100 games that you didn't know at 100.
Yeah, but
most teams
every
have
once
started
in
to
a
round
while,
out.
Every once in a while, you'll
there
get a
are
team
exceptions to the rule, but that exception would still shine through with 100 games.
It can, yeah, but every once in a while you get a team that plays August, at 21 wins, or they got 21-3 in August or something, and you're like, whoa, and all of a sudden they come out of nowhere and they're that team. But it doesn't happen all that often, and you're right, you just have to do it in June now.
Yeah,
to get that way.
I think the divisions would be interesting if you resegmented them. I don't know where Toronto fits in all this, but
even better, just go back to the way it was before. There's an American League and there's a National League. No divisions, just American League winner and the National League winner play in the World Series. That's how it used to be before divisional play in the 70s. Anyway, that's just my old timers take on baseball.
It's a good take.
It was really, really cool. And the only problem I really had with division when they broke into divisions was that the Atlanta Braves were in the National League West. Someone has to explain to me how the Atlanta Braves are in the National League West, because it was Atlanta, Houston, the Dodgers, the Padres, the Giants, right? This was the National League West, and Atlanta was in the national. I'm like, what is going on?
Right.
And then your East was your East. You had the Phillies, and you had the Mets, and you had the Expos, and you had the Pirates, and anyway.
Wait, is the only difference between the AL and the NL the designated hitter rule?
Not anymore. It used to be. It is not anymore.
So there's no difference.
Nope.
So then why the hell do we call them an AL and an NL? Like why tradition. Is it? Baseball and tradition. Yeah.
Baseball and their stupid traditions.
That's fair.
Yeah. Oh, well. I'm not a big fan of the designated hitter. I think I mean, I get why they do it, because offense sells tickets, right?
Sure.
But I like watching pitchers pitch, and I like watching pitchers hit more than anything, because back in the day, in the 80s, you had some good hitting pitchers. You'd have guys that would come up and their batting average was 250, right? This is not an easy out. You got guys in the Major League Baseball right now who can't hit 250 that are daily players. But you had guys back there who could hit the ball out of the park, who can, you know what I mean, do a little bit of everything. And it was more fun to watch because it made more strategy. You know what I mean? You had your pitcher hitting, and if you're going to hit the designated hitter, if you're going to pinch hit for him, you got to swap pitchers, right? And then there's a double switch, and this guy comes in to play this, and this guy comes in to pitch, and we're putting in a pinch hitter. He's only good for one at bat. You had strategy. You had to think about the players you were using. With a designated hitter, you throw your 9 best hitters on the field, and away we go.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
there's something to it.
Yeah. I don't know, but I just that's a baseball purist thing. I don't know. I'm old. I'm old and grouchy. Also, get off my lawn. Um,
Off my lawn.
so Formula One. The last thing we're going to talk about, Formula One is in Japan this weekend. If you want to watch, qualifying is Friday night at 11 p.m.
I love when that
The
happens.
race is Saturday night at 10. Those will be, and it doesn't say, but it'll be on the ESPN family of networks. It'll be on ESPN, ESPN2, ESPN News, depending on what else is on at the moment. ESPN or ESPN2 is usually where you're going to find it. But every once in a while, if something goes late, the men's semifinal basketball game goes 5 hours into extra overtime, you could get bumped. But who knows?
Yeah.
But anyway, right now Max Verstappen is your overall season leader, even though last race he was out early, and that seems to be the only way to beat him is mechanical failure. So far, anyway, at least as far as I know. But Verstappen leads, Leclerc second, Sergio Perez third, Carlos Sainz, Oscar Piastri, and on down the list. But it is tight. Leclerc's only 4 points behind Max Verstappen at this point. That's because no points for Verstappen in the last race. So anyway, it's still anybody's season, although if you watch the first 2 races, Max Verstappen clearly looks better than everybody else. That car is just faster.
Been that way for a minute.
Been that way for a minute. It ain't going to change. And Sergio Perez finished second in both those races, too, the first 2. So this is the whole Lewis Hamilton, Valtteri Bottas kind of a deal, right? It's not Verstappen and Perez. Verstappen and Perez won, too. Somebody else sneaks in there occasionally. This is the same way Lewis Hamilton won however many, 7 or 8 championships. So anyway, it's fun to watch. If you never watched F1, watch it. You will enjoy it. It really is fun. Qualifying, to me, might even be more fun than the race. Just because
I tend to agree.
Things happen and we cut, like we have the qualifying 1 and then 5 guys go out. And we have qualifying 2 and 5 more guys go out. And then we do it again. You might be the fastest ever lap recorded on that track in qualifying 1. Doesn't mean a thing in qualifying 3. You could still end up 10th on the grid when you start. So
yeah, but the only problem with qualifying is that that's not how that works. Like you're always running faster in Q3 than you are in Q1 every single time.
Usually.
I can't think of a single time I've seen them where they haven't been.
It's true, but
it's seconds off each Q.
Well,
so
the more times you run, usually the faster you get at it, and they have more knowledge, and it's the right tires for that qualifying. And sometimes you're running on a used set in this part, but we're new set for the final for Q3, right? That kind of thing. There's a lot goes into it. There's a lot of strategy goes into it. But yes, you're right. In general, the times get faster and faster as you get to Q3. But it's possible to be the fastest ever lap in Q1 and still finish you get knocked out of Q2. It's possible. It doesn't happen very often, but I'm just saying it's a what have you done for me lately kind of a deal in qualifying, which I like, right? So it's kind of fun. Plus, you always get these guys complaining about everybody. Oh, he was in my way, or he was too slow, or I was on the outlap, and you only have so much time, and why are these people stopping on the pit lane? And they've cut down a lot of that chatter. You don't hear as much of the nastiness, especially from the team bosses. They've cut that out a lot, but you still hear some driver stuff, and it's kind of fun to listen to those guys because everybody's going to complain about somebody else. Did you see that?
Always.
He just cut me off. It's the same thing you did to him last lap.
Yep. F1 drivers might be the biggest whiners I've ever heard.
It's the soccer equivalent. It's the F1 equivalent of grabbing your shin and falling down.
So it's just what you're saying is it's just Europeans
and maybe
are like this.
Maybe that's exactly what I'm saying. Oh,
I haven't heard Logan Sargent's.
Logan Sargent hasn't complained a whole lot. He can't complain about anything because he doesn't ever finish anything.
He's not doing very good. Yeah.
Here's how bad Logan Sargent is. There's 20 drivers in a race. He's 21st in the standings right now. There's a backup driver. There's a backup driver who's ahead of him.
It's that one guy who got points.
Oliver Behrman. He's got 6 points already. He's done better than Logan Sargent's done in the last 2 years in one race. Yeah. So there's that. All right. Yeah. There we go. You got anything else before we go?
No, I do not.
Yeah, we've been on here a long time. It's time to go.
It's been a minute.
Time to go. Next week, we're going to talk about a few more things. We'll talk about those rule changes in the NFL that are happening. There are a few. There's more than just a couple. But they're interesting to me. It's interesting the way the NFL is constantly trying to evolve, and sometimes for the better and sometimes for the worse. And eventually it'll be two-hand touch is my personal opinion. But I could be wrong, but You can't hit him here. You can't hit him there. You can't do this. You can't do that. It's always a penalty. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. The players keep getting better and bigger and stronger, and it's hard to rein that in, I guess. But that's what they keep trying to do, is make it so that your size and speed and power don't always come into it. Which, let's be honest, it's football. I want to watch two guys rough each other up.
Sure.
Yeah. Just like hockey. You want to see a fight.
To some extent, yeah.
Yeah. If you went to a hockey game and a fight didn't happen, there was not one fight, you're going to be a little disappointed unless it was like a 6-5 game and there's lots of scoring. If you had a 1-0 game and nobody fought, you're going to go home disappointed.
Yes, I would go home disappointed from a hockey game where they fight and I don't see a fight. However, I go to an NFL game to see touchdowns, not torn ACLs.
It's true. I agree with that.
So if the best player, if Tyreek Hill comes out and I'm there and I'm his biggest supporter, and on the first play somebody hip drops him and shreds apart his ACL, it's part of the game, sure, but I guess I'm not buying tickets for the rest of the year because this is my favorite player, and now I don't get to see it because of a tackle that is designed to kind of do a very specific thing. But we're supposed to talk about this next week.
We are. We're going to talk about it next week. We are talking about this right now. All right. So that's you're right. You're right. I don't know what I'm thinking. I mean,
it's just easy to roll in from one to the next.
We could talk for 3 hours pretty easily.
Yes.
That's all we have for today. We want to thank our sponsors, The Range in Yakima, Boss Kitty, Yarn, Stavenstone, Wine Estates, and Hood River. This has been a Brain Rock production, a division of Lonely Tree Media, LLC. Well, thank you all for listening, and we'll see you next week.